a friend of Valentine, and today my task is simple. People love books more than they love movies for one reason. When you're watching a movie, the director shows you everything the director wants you to see, right? But when you're reading a book, you get to use your own imagination and you get to create the images for yourself. And that's why people enjoy reading more than watching movies. So I'm going to ask you for a favor as I read some of the paragraphs from the book to try and enhance our experience. I want us to try and imagine as vividly as we can some of the things that will be described in the book. So I'm going to kindly ask that apart from the cameraman, we all close our eyes for a moment. I'm going to kindly ask that we all close our minds and our eyes and we allow ourselves to listen to the words and imagine as vividly as we can what will be described in the book. She remembers her life back to a time when her father was working at a place called Umnati Power Station, main power station that supplied the Midlands province of Zimbabwe, which was situated between Kwekwe and Karuma. The year was 1954, and she was 7 years old. To her young eyes, the place was an amazing sight. Once, there was a loud blast, and they saw an inferno raging in the station, a massive fire and thick smoke rising from the cones. Nobody knew what caused it. Thankfully, her father was not on duty that day. However, after that incident, she often had nightmares. Theirs was a one-bedroom house, part of a larger compound. 7 of them lived there. Her parents, herself, and her brothers, Alec, Paul, and Mike, as well as her sister Maggie. She slept in the dining room, and her brothers slept on the floor in her parents' bedroom. Maggie was still just a baby, so she shared the bed with the parents. The bathrooms were communal, rows of pit latrines with partitions between each one that were often messy. No white people were present in their compound. The few white people in that area lived in their own posh neighborhood. Their houses were fancy compared to their humble dwellings. There were only 3 shops, one in East called John Walker, one in the West called Charlie's, and the other one, whose name she doesn't remember, was Southeast. These were all quite far. It was just as well because most people only went to the shops once a month, soon after they got paid. All of them in the compound were paid low wages, quarreled and fought. Nothing of that sort between Alec and her when they were growing up. For some reason, their parents thought it wasn't normal. So one day, Alec and her had a minor disagreement. She can't remember what it was, but her parents seized the opportunity to have some entertainment at their expense. She was about 12, Alec was 8. Dad went and took 2 branches from a nearby tree. He stripped off the branches from that nearby tree, and then he said to us,
I want you two to follow each other. That will teach you never to pick a fight with each other.
They sat in the shade, with smug smiles on their faces, anticipating the comic scene which was about to unfold. She stood there with Alec, facing each other, armed with branches, quaking in fear. Although she was 4 years older than her brother, he was physically bigger than her. Her mom asked what they were waiting for. Her brother, being the gentle person he was, and still is, looked at her and said, I am not doing this. He put his branch down and walked away. You will never know how relieved she was. Aged 17, Alec went to work at Risco, and their quality of life improved. His financial contribution made all the difference. As years went by, he developed an eloquent flair of speech. He certainly has a way with words. It got to the point that in our circle of friends, whenever anyone had an engagement party or wedding, her brother was inevitably the designated master of ceremony. He is a good storyteller. He's a very good storyteller. He tells stories and relays events in such a way that you feel as if you were watching a movie. He has the ability to paint very vivid pictures in the listener's mind. He is truly gifted. Her brother Paul is the third born. They were alike in many ways. They both avoided confrontations or arguments. They both could express themselves better on paper rather than vocally. They both liked to read and travel. What she liked most about Paul was that he was so agreeable. When they were growing up, she felt that she could confide in him about anything without the fear of him ever criticizing or judging her. One of her friends nicknamed him Agreeable. I don't know if he was aware of that nickname though. When he started working, he took over the family's financial responsibility from Dad, who had retired, and Alec, who had lost his job due to an accident. He did a good job of it over the years. The fourth child in the family is Mike. He's a talented, left-handed, intelligent person, and she had no doubt that he would have sailed through college if only he had been given the chance. Unfortunately, like in her case, Dad did not have the money. He's on the quiet side, very quiet side, and he's even-tempered. Maggie is the fifth. She is the most determined person I've ever known. The word impossible is not in her vocabulary. She can tackle any difficult task or situation and make it look like it's nothing at all. She inevitably dropped out of school in 6th grade because of financial issues, but it didn't curb her ambitions to succeed in life. In 1981, her sister went to work for the Catholic priests in one of the missions. She went to work for one of the Catholic priests in the missions. They were rather primitive at the time. Her sister had to use a cast iron wood stove to cook. The water had to be fetched from outside. She had to carry the prepared meals to the main house, which were a distance from the kitchen. Normally, this would require a couple of trips to deliver the prepared meal, dishes, and all, but Maggie had a solution for that. She always pulled everything in a huge wooden tray, placed it on her head, and grabbed a jar of milk in one hand and a loaf of bread in another. She would then confidently walk to the dining room, where the priests waited for their meal. I would watch the precariously balanced tray on her head, fearful that it might tip over and crashing down full. Not once did it happen. After working for the priests for over a year, my sister decided to do something to improve her life. First, she became a nun in the light of the Life Christian group. She then started studying to write GSCEs externally. She passed and went to a teacher's college. 3 years later, she had a high school teaching degree and immediately started her teaching job, which she did not stop. These are some of the moments of my family, some paragraphs from the book.